All right, ready for a deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at the choices that lead to some pretty remarkable success, so buckle up. We're going to be talking about somebody who took a leap of faith and, well, kind of changed the world, and it's fascinating how it all started with an idea and a whole lot of passion.
Yeah, you know what I find so intriguing is how this person makes those connections, between passion and taking risks and that just relentless drive to make something new. It's a lot more than just business. It's about life.
It really is. And, there's this great story about how he told his boss about his idea for, get this, an online bookstore.
Mm.
Can you imagine quitting a steady job for something like that back then? It seemed crazy.
It did seem crazy, and his boss's reaction was almost like the classic play it safe response. He said, it's a good idea, but it would be even better for somebody without a good job, basically saying, stick with what you know, don't rock the boat.
It's so easy to just take that easy route, isn't it? But he didn't. He decided to go all in on his vision, even when people thought it was a little out there, maybe even a little crazy. It makes you think, about times in your own life when you're at a similar crossroads. Did you play it safe, or did you decide to go for it?
It's a question we all ask ourselves at some point, right? And what's really interesting is that his drive to create didn't just come out of nowhere. Even as a kid, he was a total tinkerer, building things like a gate closer using a cement-filled tire.
Wait, hold on. A cement-filled tire, that's commitment.
It is. And then there were solar cookers, and he made alarms to keep his siblings out of his room. It's almost like all of these little inventions were like a preview of what he'd go on to achieve.
It's true.
I think it really shows the power of that natural curiosity and that drive to solve problems. For him, it wasn't just about business. It was about making ideas a reality. And that's something that really resonates with me. I've always been drawn to those impossible challenges, those things that really push the boundaries.
It's contagious, that kind of passion. And speaking of passion, he was a big believer in the slow is smooth and smooth is fast approach. It's a military saying that might seem kind of backwards at first, but it's really insightful.
Yeah, and what people often forget is that real progress isn't about just raw speed, but consistent effort over time. It's those everyday choices, showing up, refining your skills, and building something meaningful step by step. It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't try to sprint the whole way, would you? You have to pace yourself, build up endurance, and focus on constant improvement.
That's a really good analogy. So it's not just about getting there fast, it's about getting there the right way. And that actually connects with something else he talked about, being proud of your natural gifts versus being proud of the choices that you make.
It's such an important distinction. We may be born with certain talents, but it's the choices that we make, how we use those gifts, the hard work we put in that really shapes us. Now, he's not saying we shouldn't appreciate our talents, but it's about understanding that it's the actions we take and the challenges we face that we can really look back on with pride.
It really makes you think about those times when you decided to push yourself, to step outside of your comfort zone. Those are the choices that actually make us who we are, wouldn't you say?
It really does. It's those moments when we choose courage over comfort that lead to the most growth. And, he had a really interesting way of looking at it. He talked about how the world is full of overwhelming inspiration, highlighting this insane amount of change and convention and opportunity.
So he's saying we're surrounded by all these possibilities, but we have to actually do something with them. We can't just sit back and watch.
Exactly. And then he follows it up with these questions that really make you think, like, how will you use your gifts? What choices will you make? It's all about being intentional, about actively shaping our own path instead of letting life just happen to us.
He even asks, will inertia be your guide, or will you follow your passions?
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that we actually have a choice. We can either just go with the flow or grab the oars and steer ourselves.
There's this real sense of urgency in his words. He's not just talking about finding a job. He's talking about finding what truly makes you excited, what sets your soul on fire. And that can be pretty scary for some people. I mean, what if you fail? What if people judge you?
And that's where his next question comes in. Will you wilt under criticism, or will you follow your convictions? It takes guts to stand up for what you believe in, especially when it's not the popular thing to do.
It's about having the courage to be different, to embrace what makes you unique, even if other people don't get it. And then he asks another question that really hit home for me. Will you guard your heart against rejection, or will you act when you fall in love?
Wow, that's a deep one. I think it speaks to how vulnerable we can feel when we go after something we really want, like a creative project or a relationship, or maybe even just a dream we've had for a long time.
It does. There's always that risk of rejection, that fear of getting hurt. But when we try to protect ourselves from that, we also close ourselves off to the joy and fulfillment that comes from really connecting with something or someone.
It reminds me that sometimes we have to be a little, what he called swashbuckling. Not reckless, but willing to take chances and step outside our comfort zones. A lot of the best things that have happened in my life have come from those moments where I just decided to be brave and embrace the unknown, even though it felt a little scary.
I totally agree. You can feel that energy, that feeling of being truly alive when you embrace that sense of adventure. But it's not just about that initial leap. He also talked about how important resilience is, not giving up when things get tough.
He actually asks, when it's tough, will you give up or will you be relentless? I mean, that's a powerful thought right there.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that success is rarely a straight line. There are going to be obstacles and setbacks and times when you doubt yourself, but it's our ability to keep going, to learn from our mistakes, that really shapes our journey.
Right, and he compares that to cynicism, asking, will you be a cynic or will you be a builder? It's so easy to get caught up in negativity and focus on what's wrong, but when we choose to be builders, to focus on solutions and what's possible, that's what gives us the power to make real change.
It's about shifting our mindset from complaining to creating. And he wasn't just talking about building businesses or actual physical structures. He was talking about building relationships, building communities, building a better future. It's about contributing something good to the world, even if it's just in a small way. I'm curious, what are some ways you've found to embrace that builder mentality in your life?
That's a great question. For me, it's about looking for those little everyday opportunities to make a difference, like mentoring someone at work or volunteering in my community or even just listening to a friend who needs someone to talk to. It's those small acts of kindness and support that can really make a difference.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And it connects to something else that was important to him, the power of empowering others. He really believed that when we give people the tools and resources to express their creativity, we're tapping into something truly special.
It's like setting off a chain reaction of innovation and good things happening. He saw it as a win-win, where everyone benefits. When we help others succeed, we create more opportunities for everybody, including ourselves. It's a really beautiful concept that I think we forget about sometimes in such a competitive world.
It's a good reminder that we're not supposed to do everything on our own. We do better when we work together, support each other's dreams, and lift each other up. He talked about the difference between having a job and having a career, saying, you're very lucky if you have a career. A lot of people end up with a job. What do you think he meant by that?
I think he was talking about that difference between working just to get paid and finding work that really speaks to your passions and values. It's about finding something that gives you a sense of purpose, something that gets you excited to start your day.
Yeah, it's about more than just getting by. It's about truly thriving. It makes you wonder if maybe sometimes we settle for good enough instead of going after what really lights us up inside.
Absolutely. It takes courage to get out of that comfortable place and challenge those doubts that might be holding us back. It's a journey, a constant process of discovering ourselves and growing. Something he said really stuck with me. Jules Verne, Mark Twain, Galileo, Newton, all the curious from the ages would have wanted to be alive most of all right now. What a statement.
It gives me chills. It's like he's saying we're living in this amazing time with so many possibilities, and he's challenging us to approach it with a sense of wonder and curiosity and be open to making the most of it.
Yeah, it's a call to action. Embrace your inner explorer. Push the limits of what you think is possible. And it all comes down to the choices we make, the actions we take, and the stories we create with our lives.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's resonating with you the most? What stands out as a key takeaway?
I think it's that focus on making choices. We may not always be able to control what happens in our lives, but we can always decide how we react to things, how we grow from those experiences and what we choose to create.
It's pretty empowering when you think about it. We're not just passengers. We're the ones in the driver's seat shaping our own destinies.
Right, and it's not about trying to become super successful like the person we're talking about. It's about using these principles in our own lives, whatever our goals are.
That's a good point. Whether you're running a company or raising a family, these ideas about passion and resilience, empowering others, they're really for everyone. It's about tapping into our potential as people.
And he put it in such an interesting way, saying, as a civilization, we will have so many gifts, just as you as individuals have so many individual gifts. It's like he's acknowledging this incredible potential that exists in all of us as humans.
It's a beautiful idea, and it goes back to that whole idea of empowering others. When we build a culture that encourages people to explore their passions and use their talents. We create this force for good that can really have an impact for generations to come.
It's about realizing we're all in this together. Our success is tied to the well-being of everyone around us and the world as a whole. I was reading about how he actually started his first company in a garage. It's a story that's been told so many times, but it never gets old, does it?
Never.
It reminds you that even the biggest dreams can start from simple beginnings.
Yeah, you don't need to have all the answers or this perfect plan to get going. It's about taking that first step, being brave, and trusting that you'll figure things out along the way.
Exactly. And remembering that the path isn't always going to be straight. There will be challenges and setbacks and times you feel like giving up. But it's how we handle those tough moments, how we learn from them and keep pushing forward that really defines success.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the biggest takeaway is that we all have the power to create a life we're proud of, a life that reflects our passions and what's important to us.
It's about making choices that help us grow, contribute to the world, and make a positive impact. And it starts with believing in ourselves, believing in our dreams, and being brave enough to take that first step.
That's so true. And remember, if he could build an empire starting in a garage, what's stopping you from chasing your own dreams and making choices that lead to a life you really love? That's something to think about as we close out this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.